the Fox move, this is the ultimate case in my career of be careful what you wish for. Had this incredible environment on breakfast time on FX, and Greg Meidel, who had moved on at that point, or he in a transition, he was at Paramount. He was at Fox. I'm sorry, he was at Paramount later, and he wanted to bring the show to the network. And to be honest, those of us at FX on the show, I think, kind of thought of it as the farm team for Fox. If we like in baseball, you do well on the farm team, you go up to the, you go up to the majors. What happened, unfortunately, was in the interim between the show being greenlit to go to the network, Greg left. He went to Paramount. So we became somebody else's project, which you never want to be. You never want to be the other guy's pet project. And to spread the blame as equally as possible, those of us who were, and I was a co-executive producer of the Fox show, we started to second guess ourselves. Okay, we're going to, and Peter was back. Peter, who had left to take another position in Fox, came back to shepherd the transition. Peter Feynman. So initially I felt this is great. Peter's back. We're going to the network like we always hoped we could. It's going to be wonderful. But we all started second guessing ourselves. And initially they said, "Oh, we want to audition your co-host." What? I got a co-host. Well, it's a network show. We just want to see. We want to. And I auditioned with a few people just because this was all new to me too. So, and I said, "No, I want to be." Lori and I have a great thing. So, and then we want to get a more professional announcer. And Jim behind the newspaper. So it was like, what? But, it's a network show now, and there were different expectations. And so one by one, in all of these decisions, based in part from my standpoint, being a bit of a babe in the woods, I didn't really, I did my first network show experience, and trusting the experience of others. But finding out later that we all were overthinking it. We all were being hyper cautious, those of us who were in a position to make these decisions. We chipped away, almost unwittingly, at everything that made the show wonderful on cable. Some modifications you'd have to make because you're going from a 2-hour show to a 1-hour show. But the soul of it, we were losing. And we didn't really know until we were on the air. For those first few weeks, it seemed okay. I mean, we're getting our bearings. Lori and I still had a good byplay, but it started to turn. The idea was, okay, it's going to be Tom and his friends, as opposed to Tom and Lori, and that played to my ego a little bit. I'll admit that I got a little puffed up at okay, all right, well, but that was my contribution to selling it down the river too, unwittingly. And ultimately the network came in and said, we don't think the co-host is working, and Lori was let go. And then a little bit later, we don't think the puppet's working, and the puppet was let go. And we reverted to a format that Mike Douglas had used years ago of a different co-host coming in every week. And so I went from being the guy on the breakfast time show who could run crazy and have Lori there to kind of roll her eyes and, all right, boys. Like Al and Jim and I would be the Three Stooges almost, and Lori would be Margaret Dumont. Or, I've turned her from Mary Tyler Moore to Margaret Dumont. And of course, there's a before and after picture. Google those two names, you'll know what I mean. But she was sort of the calming adult voice. Well, now I had to be the grown-up teaching somebody how to host a talk show every week. And while some of those weeks were wonderful, and I made some great friendships with people like Bonnie Hunt and Gladys Knight and Linda Gray and Melissa Gilbert and people like that. I mean, it was a wonderful, and people who watched the show who had no knowledge of the FX version loved it. The rock group Yes reunited on Fox After Breakfast because they loved the show so much. But for us who knew how good the FX show had been, I remember one time, because Phil Kogan had come over to the Fox show too, and he was showing some video to those of us who were in mourning of the old FX show. And it was like those of us from the cable show were having almost like an Irish wake. It was, you know, it was tough. It was tough. There were great moments. I think this one's on YouTube, actually, when they were firing Bob the Puppet. And David Frost, Sir David Frost, was on the show. And I said to him before we went on, I said, they're firing our puppet. Would you do a David Frost interview with Bob? And David Frost did it, and it's brilliant. And you can see it on YouTube. And he's as seriously as he was interviewing disgraced President Nixon, he interviewed Bob. And it was like, do you have support in the puppet community? And Al, brilliant Al, is saying things like, no, Kermit, Elmo, they don't return my calls. And it was that kind of show. And we just, you know, we went out. Finally, I just cashed in a bunch of vacation time and disappeared from the show. I just kind of walked away from it. But, and it was hard. The hardest thing for me was being in the same environment, the same physical environment where I had had, to date, the most fun I've ever had in television. And I couldn't feel it anymore. It was, I suppose it's like if a relationship goes sour and you thought, God, we used to have great sex, and now, you know, I'm not feeling anything here. And it was like that. And I couldn't, and it was, I did the most drinking I've ever done, seriously, in my life during that period. That's how I dealt with it. Not proudly, but honestly, I was the first person at Dewey's Flatiron Pub every day when it opened. And I'd pour myself into a town car that drove me back to Connecticut.